So tell us what menopause is, perimenopause is, and the difference between the two.
Say less, I can do that. So perimenopause is actually the phase before you hit menopause. So perimenopause is generally, it's initiated by noticing changes of about 7 or so days of your period changing. So you can either have a period twice a month, a period that's lasting a little longer than normal. And then some women also start to get some hot flashes and more anxiety. I like to think of perimenopause as more like when you're a young woman going through puberty to hit your reproductive phase of life. So perimenopause is that transition to get to menopause, which is the non-reproductive phase of our lives as women. And then menopause, classically for women who have cycles every month, we say you're in menopause after you've gone 12 consecutive months without having a menstrual cycle. So that means that your body can no longer develop and make babies anymore. And that whole process and phenomenon comes with its own set of changes, if you will. And it's all mitigated by estrogen loss. It's all about estrogen slowly losing its ability to have its effect on our bodies.
You know what? That last sentence, they point about estrogen and the loss of estrogen. It is putting together a few things in my head based on what we're going to talk about, based on the topic of sex and cholesterol. I think that last sentence answers a lot. But I have a question that I see all the time. If we have 11 months, if we have our period for 11 months, and you said 12 consecutive months, but let's say it was 11. It's so close. Can we technically just say, yeah, I'm in menopause?
Technically, you cannot. And the reason, actually, when you're in menopause, there's a whole hormonal cascade that starts to happen. And it's kind of like signals are coming from the brain and telling the ovaries to just shoot out as many eggs as it can. So that
Uh,
means we say 12 months because even though you're at 11 months, if you haven't reached 12, guess what? You're still eligible to become pregnant. So we use the 12 marker because we know that that is initially like where people are no longer able to produce children. Because I do have women come into the office with that same type of thought process, and then they end up pregnant at 53 years old. I've seen it twice, actually.
twice. So I have a question on the flip side. Let's say the 12 months happen because when it comes to biology, I feel like rarely can we see something just so set in stone. You know, once you hit the 12-month mark, you are for sure the clock is off. But can you get pregnant in your 30 if you've had your period for you haven't had your period for 13 months? Can you still get pregnant?
Technically, no, theoretically, but I'm the type that I will check hormone levels. So if there is some concern, if a person isn't sure that maybe it was 11, maybe it was 12, I stopped
Mm.
counting when I realized it wasn't happening, I'll just check hormone levels and see where we are. And normally we check a hormone level called FSH, and that's follicle stimulating hormone, comes from our bodies and tells our ovaries to secrete ovaries or eggs that are going to be ready for reproduction. And so I'll check that level. And generally, when it's really, really high, along with estrogen being high as well, we can sometimes say that that's menopause as well. So
You know what, Doc?
conversation, individualized medicine there a little bit.
That's the thing. I feel, Dr. Stone, I feel like the scientific part of my brain prefers, let's go run some tests to see for sure, instead of, oh, how many periods have you had? So I like that. But how about perimenopause? At what age does perimenopause start?
So I've seen it as young as 37 now, to be honest. 37 and generally around 45, around that age frame is when we start to see some of those changes. A lot of women come
37?
in like 37. I've seen it actually in the last couple of weeks. So it's interesting.
What do you
And
think is causing
generally
that? Has
too,
it always been like that?
it has. And here's the kicker too, because I have a lot of women coming in and they're concerned in their early 30s. Am I going through menopause? So there's a bunch of other different categories that we look at when people are having trouble with their menstrual cycles. So for example, there's a condition called primary ovarian insufficiency. So there's different conditions like stress, different autoimmune conditions that can also throw off your period. So just because your period isn't coming and you're not pregnant, and there's a change, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're perimenopausal. I think one of the things you should do if you are noticing menstrual cycle changes, especially over 3 cycles, you should go into the doc and have some levels drawn. I've seen ladies come in not knowing that their thyroid levels are off. thyroid
Mhm.
levels can also cause period changes to happen too, especially in younger women. So it's definitely a cause of concern and definitely needs to be checked out.
I think hearing that you can be perimenopausal at 37, I think, wow. I think, wow, that's what I think. So it's interesting. I'm interested to see if it's always been like this, for example, in the 60s, 50s, or is there an increased incidence of this nowadays? Just like, for example, with cancer, it wasn't, we didn't have this many instances or incidences of cancer being reported, and I find that it's increased dramatically. So it leads me to wonder, is there some sort of correlation between the two in terms of just the number of instances or incidences? What do you think?
I think it's kind of complex. I think one, when we think about aging in general, right? And when you look at the definition of aging, it means number one is genetically influenced process. It's going to happen in every single person. And what's going to start to happen is that that genetic process can be changed by different environmental factors. So when we talk
Mm,
about the different processed foods we're eating, women, we're working more, we're working longer, we have more on our plates now. We're doing more. So I think there's a lot of role in how our lives look now as women and the levels of stress that we're under that are also playing an impact on our reproductive health.
wow, I feel like
Cancers, all of it, they all kind of go together.
why don't we talk about this more? I've never heard a conversation on this. Why?
Because BGV is just now doing it. We've been waiting on Black Girl Vitamins to start the conversations. That's why.
Well, we're happy to be doing it. I'm excited. Well, I'm not excited about the statistic that we just discussed, but I'm excited about the fact that BGV is doing it. So, stemming off of that, I saw a question in the chat that I think we need to address now because it feeds into the conversation. Where's the question? I can't find it right now, but I saw somebody ask if they can still have a baby. If uh she's she's menopausal, can she have a baby?
Technically, no. Technically, no. If you are in the menopausal phase of your life, that exactly is what menopause is. It's the inability to continue to create new life.
Uh,
Hmm.
got it. So does this feed into let's go into the conversation about sex because I mean if you're new here, let me just, this is my moment now, Dr. Stan. This is what I read so many med articles about. Okay, so guys, listen.